Hi, this is Catherine. This is Taking Tea with Catherine. This is Simpson and Vale's Beatrix Potter Herbal Tisane Blend, or Herbal Blend Tisane. Not sure which which way is which. Um, but this is a nice herbal tea. And I picked it today because I wanted to pick a tea named after something bookish, and most of the ones I have are caffeinated. This is an herbal tea. So there you go. And I do like Beatrix Potter's books. But I thought it would be appropriate. Obviously, this is a booktube channel mainly, so most of the posts I make are about books. But this is a super post about books because I am announcing, without too much fanfare, uh, a little thing I'd like to do in January, sort of a reading challenge, sort of just a little bit of an initiative, a little fun thing. And that is something I call Read About Books in January. And mainly, the challenge encompasses read a book about books. There are so many to choose from, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But I'm going to do it either way. I'm going to read as many books as possible about books in January. And it's called Read About Books, which means one could also read magazines about books. But I might read other books as well in the month of January. I have some group reads that I'm participating in, so yes. But that's going to be my main focus in January. But if you'd like to join in, I'd be very happy to see that as well. And the main idea is to read at least one book about books or magazine about books, but especially a book about books. And or if you want to have a little fun, I'm not going to throw a bunch of prompts in because this is my first time I've even come close to kind of hosting something. I'm not going to do prompts, but I will say if you want to stretch it a little farther, maybe pick a fiction and a nonfiction book about books. Of course, you could pile on all the books that you want in your TBR, but I understand it's, been a rough year. Let's keep things low key and simple and enjoyable. Getting too ambitious is not always a good idea for January. However, there's a reason why I picked January. One is because there are probably a couple events in January, as there are in every month on BookTube, but there aren't too many major ones, so I thought that could work anyway. And reading about books, I think, is kind of weirdly enough, almost a detox. Like, instead of having to maybe hyper focus on certain novels or heavy tomes, you're just reading about reading, and that helps because it's relaxing. At least it is to me. It's relaxing, and it helps one, I think, to plan for the year. So like in January, a lot of people do some of their yearly planning. I mean, people start before January, but really, I mean, people start joining gyms and all that stuff. I don't really get into all that pressure, but it is kind of nice to look over one's year and say, ooh, what would I like to read this year? And I've already started thinking about making some goals videos anyway this month. But reading books about books can help you plan because they might get you excited about some books that have existed for a while, because most of these books are about existing books that are not new releases. But I thought that could help. You could discover something new just in reading these books. So I thought I'd give you some suggestions, some of which may end up on my TBR for January. And I thought I'd start with nonfiction. And the first one is the big one, which a lot of people I think on BookTube might be reading anyway, because I know Sarah at Hardcover Hearts for the past couple of years has been doing sort of a yearly read of this book on New Year's, and a lot of people have joined in, including myself. And I found when I read this book in January, it actually did help me a little bit plan my reading year, or at least get myself in the mood for reading. Either way, I did end up getting some books from this suggestion. It wasn't my first time I read this book. So without further ado, this is the book I talk about and the author I talk about so much on this channel, and I will probably again this month. This is 84 Charing Cross Road by Helaine Hanff. This is, I think, on BookTube, one of the definitive books about books, because it is a writer writing to a bookshop and a bookshop writing back. It's just a correspondence. So that is like the ultimate. It encompasses so much that could be part of a book about books. Bookshops. If you read a book about bookshops, you're already reading a book about books. reading books about the quality of books, or the history of bookbinding even could be part of it. And they talk a lot about how things are bound in this book. Reading about all kinds of literature, nonfiction, fiction, you name it. So this is the book about books. If you were not going to read anything else, this would probably be the best one. And it's not that big either, but it's just lovely. And then there's a lot of book memoirs. So My Life with Bob is something I have not read yet, but I've heard decent things about, by Pamela Paul. Flawed heroine keeps book of books. Plot ensues. So hopefully it's good. Why do I think I saw a cat in this picture? I see cats everywhere. Oopsies. This is another one I haven't read yet. Proust and the Squid, the story and science of the reading brain. So even reading books about reading, about what goes into reading can be included. Of course, any kind of book about a writer and their life is good. This one is something I might read in July, but you may even want to read it in January. The Real Jane Austen, A Life in Small Things by Paula Byrne. Yep. There's a couple of books, I think they're kind of like essays and, well, this one isn't, but anyway. This is a couple of books, though, by Anne Fadiman, or at least compiled by her, the second book. Ex Libris. This is another book with that name, but that's not the one I'm talking about. And Rereadings, which is a book I want to read about, because I've read this one. I don't think I've read this one, but I'm planning to do a lot of rereading in the next months to come, so that helps, right? This is a book I read in 2020. This is Well Read Black Girl, in which a number of Black women wrote about their reading life, really. What interested them about reading, what got them into reading, what they write even. And this could give you a lot of ideas for reading as well. Of course, an author's autobiography, Agatha Christie's, which I haven't read yet. So that might go into my TBR if I finish the other biography I have on her. Cats in Books is a book I got out of the library. So it's a small book. It's just about cat illustrations in books. So, yep. This is a book I read a number of years ago, My Life in Middlemarch by Rebecca Mead. It's about her interest in the book Middlemarch by George Eliot, and a bit about George Eliot as well. This could get you really in the mood for reading or rereading Middlemarch, which I am overdue to do, actually. Those are a few nonfiction. There are so many nonfiction books about books, and there are so many novels about books. To me, one of the best ones, or at least one of the best series. There are a couple other series that are like this. There's one that's for a younger reading group, although I read it as well. But this is the one that I've known about for many years and plan to reread at least some of the series coming up soon. And that is the Thursday Next novels. This is the first one in that series, The Air Affair by Jasper Fforde, which is kind of like an alternate Earth where a lot of kind of sci-fi things happen, a little bit of fantasy. People are a little more serious about reading and about book crimes. And Thursday Next is kind of like I don't know if she was a detective or police. It's been a while since I remember her exact position. But she finds out that she can read herself into books. So she could basically read a book and end up being in the book, usually fiction books. So in doing her job and also joining this other adventure, she ends up meeting a lot of literary characters. And, because of copyright reasons, usually they end up being books from classics, which I love. So in the first book, she meets Mr. Rochester from Jane Eyre. She meets at some point Heathcliff. I think it's some kind of group therapy or couples therapy or something in some of the series, and also Miss Havisham, which is one of my favorite characters actually in the series. So definitely, this is ultimate. If you haven't read some of the books in here, you may not get every reference, but it'll make you want to read a number of these books. Maybe not the Fairy Queen. Not very positive about that one, but I actually am curious. Here's a book that I want to read, and I have out of the library, so I really want to get to it, and it's The Reading List. It's a new book. Let's see. Do you want me to read this? Okay, I will. Widower Mukesh lives a quiet life in West London, where, obviously, I'm going to read that, where he shops every Wednesday, goes to temple, and worries about his granddaughter Priya, who hides in a room reading, while he spends his evenings watching nature documentaries. Alicia is a bright but anxious teenager working at the local library when she discovers a forgotten slip of paper in the back of To Kill a Mockingbird. It's a list of novels she's never heard of before. Intrigued, she impulsively decides to read every book on the list, one after the other. As each story gives up its magic, the books transport Alicia away from the painful reality she's facing at home. So it goes on to these characters involved in this reading list. And I just think that's really cool. It is definitely a book about reading. And this is a book that I just recently found at Book Off. I don't think I've put it in any of my hauls, but it's a fictional, biographical, I suppose, novel about Murasaki, one of the earliest known novelists. So The Tale of Murasaki by Liza Dalby, who also wrote a number of books about geisha. I think she was even I think she had something to do with the film Memoirs of a Geisha. I'm not sure. It's been ages. And this is a book I read. It's kind of a mystery. It wasn't my favorite book, but it was definitely a book about books. And that is The Bookshop of Yesterdays by Amy Meyerson. This, I think, is one of those, like, books that have been come out in recent years. It may not exactly be this, but so many of these books in recent years have been some person who has either some changes happening in their life, or they think they're happy in their life, or whatever's happening in their life, inherits a bookshop that is in trouble and somehow has to save it, and usually ends up meeting someone and falling in love. I'm not sure if that's the exact premise of this book, but that as a lot of the books that I read, and I'm not knocking it because it's fun, but a little overkill, I think. There's been a lot of books like that. But there's also, to me, if you're not tired of mysteries by January, and I don't think many people will be, there's also mysteries that take place in bookshops. So, Of Books and Bagpipes, a Scottish bookshop mystery by Paige Shelton. There are so many cozy mysteries, especially, that take place in bookshops, in libraries, involving a writer. I mean, Murder, She Wrote, stuff like that. And they are so much fun. They are sometimes a little bit repetitive or a little bit corny, but hey, that makes it all the more cozy, and most people could use cozy in January. So, those are some ideas. Hopefully that gave you some ideas, and hopefully that made you a little bit interested. So please let me know in the comments down below if you think you might like to join in on this. Even if it's just one book, I would be happy to see that as well. I will follow up in a little while with a TBR, and I hope that I will have enough time in January. One always hopes to make quite a few videos about books. So I am looking forward to it very much, and I hope you are too. But for now, this is Catherine at Taking Tea with Catherine. Have a lovely tea and books about book filled day.